Every utopian city ever built has failed, usually because of hubris or poor planning, or more often, simply greed. But the tiny Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan is attempting the unthinkable, a $1 trillion city built not on GDP, but on happiness. They call it the Gelephu Mindfulness City. Now, I traveled there to understand whether this is a revolutionary blueprint for humanity, or just the world's most beautiful and expensive mistake. To wrap our minds around the scope of this gamble, you have to look first at the dream, and it is spectacularly beautiful. The plan for Gelephu isn't just another concrete jungle. It's envisioned as a modernized paradise built directly into the landscape of southern Bhutan. And the pitch? It's seductive. A city powered entirely by green energy, neighborhoods designed not for cars but for community connection. Wellness solutions and spirituality aren't just add-ons, they're woven into the very architecture of the inhabited bridges that span the rivers. It's designed to be the antithesis of the stressful, polluted, modern metropolis, a place where the environment actually improves your mental health just by living there. And here's the master plan. It's organized into 11 distinct neighborhoods, each inspired by the spiritual geometry of the Buddhist mandala. The crucial innovation lies in its inhabited bridges that span the floodplains that flow out of the mountains nearby. Indeed, the entire city is designed to be a sponge to collect that otherwise devastating runoff. But these aren't just traffic conduits. They provide civic functions. One bridge will house the Vajrayana Spiritual Center for monks and masters of mindfulness. Another will host a healthcare center which blends Eastern and Western medicine as the antithesis of what is going on between big pharma and big wellness. Another will be a hydroponic greenhouse bridge, putting sustainable agriculture on display, and even a new international airport which just broke ground, designed to be a pleasurable experience and not a chore of having your privacy violated by ever more strict security checks. The final spectacular bridge is the Sankosh Temple Dam, an enormous hydroelectric facility built to look like a cascading 21st century Buddhist monument while also supplying power to the entire city and the region around it. The goal is to build an entire city that is both carbon negative and built primarily with local materials like wood, stone, and bamboo. In fact, the whole thing is 90% green. That's trees everywhere. It is radical architecture in service of a radical philosophy. It sounds perfect. Almost too perfect. Like the hidden valley of Shangri-La from the film Lost Horizon.
Welcome to Shangri-La, Mr. Conway.
Which we should remember ended in tragedy. History tells us that when humans try to build perfection, it usually ends in disaster. The road to the future is paved with failed utopias. I mean, time and again, we've seen spiritual intentions curdle, like in Oroville, India, where a once vibrant community of hippies is now aging out without any replacement generation behind them. We've seen bizarre ego-driven projects like Saudi Arabia's The Line, which is more like a dystopian prison city where the government actively executes journalists, or maybe it's a billionaire's paradise, than anywhere that you or I would want to live. And let's also, because I'm in Colorado, let's remember the 19th century attempt to build Greeley, Colorado as a cooperative utopia by the publishing magnate Horace Greeley. Not only did it not live up to its ideals and succumb to standard capitalism, but arguably it failed so badly that when the Egyptian intellectual named Sayyid Qutb visited there after World War II, he saw it as the epitome of American decadence. He went on to pen a manifesto that became the founding document of Al-Qaeda. But that's another story, and let me know if you want to hear about it down in the comments. Anyway, utopian projects fail because grand architectural visions inevitably collide with messy human realities. Like every other utopian plan before it, Gelephu faces those same hurdles. And let's go over just a few of them. The first challenge, as I see it, is exactly where they're building Gelephu. It's not in the high Himalayas, it's on the steamy southern border with India. The region has a painful history. It's the traditional home of the Lok Sampa, which is a Nepali-speaking ethnic minority of Bhutan. In the 1990s, fearing a demographic shift that would threaten the dominant culture of Bhutanese Vajrayana Buddhism, Bhutan enacted policies that led to what the Bhutanese government calls the removal, but others call the ethnic cleansing, of more than 100,000 Lok Sampa. Most still live in refugee camps outside of the country. Now, in that very same region is where Bhutan plans to invite hundreds of thousands of foreigners to populate this new city. You see the problem there. It raises a massive question. Is a country that has historically been so protective of its culture that it expelled its own citizens really ready to double its population with outsiders? I mean, they project Gelephu will be 1 million people, and Bhutan currently only has 700,000 people in its country. What happens when the mindful values of the city clash with the diverse values of the immigrants needed to build it, or the demands of foreign investors who want a return on their cash? Okay, so those are problems, but Bhutan feels like it has no choice. It's at a serious crossroads. The country is widely known to be the happiest country on earth, yet it's facing a massive brain drain. Young and educated Bhutanese are leaving in droves for Australia and the United States because there are simply no economic opportunities at home. And to be fair, Bhutan realizes that those are issues. They set up Gelephu as a separate economic zone with its own independent set of laws, judiciary, and visa structures that are completely separate from the rest of the country. The aim is to get the city up and running and then integrate it with the rest of Bhutan about 40 years down the line. Well, that is a political battle that will play out over a century. It's worth remembering that if happiness is the nation's main export, that you can't eat happiness. And this leads to the fascinating origin story of Bhutan's most famous metric, gross national happiness. It wasn't ancient wisdom. It was a modern invention born of necessity or maybe opportunity. You see, the very first leader of Bhutan ever to leave the country was the fourth king. And it happened in 1970. He went to Cuba to a meeting of non-aligned leaders. And on his way back, he had to stop in India because India was the only place that had an airport anywhere near Bhutan. So he was on the border, and an Indian journalist asked him, "What is going on inside your country? We don't have anyone who's ever gone there. Can you at least tell us what your chief export product is?" Well, at the time, Bhutan didn't have any exports or even chief products because it was this isolated nation. So the king said that they don't have a gross national product or a chief export. What Bhutan has is gross national happiness, which is a story they've run with to this day. It was a brilliant pivot. Lacking material goods to export, Bhutan exported an idea. Traveling through Bhutan, from what I could see, people generally did appear content. There's a palpable sense of peace not to be in the middle of the American social media election cycle madness that I live in every day. But they are also struggling desperately to adapt to the modern world that they recently let in. I mean, they only got television in 1990. Social media has recently flooded the country and shown the youth how big the world outside the Himalayas really is. And the clash of the eras is jarring. At one religious ceremony I attended, a High Lama stopped his chanting mid-ceremony to check his cell phone and maybe scroll through Facebook. Yeah, sure, the country is full of monks, but that doesn't mean that they are not being manipulated by the algorithms and foreign ideas as much as anyone else. For all the talk of happiness, Bhutan's government is incredibly reticent to accept differences within it. You can't travel there without a government-mandated guide watching your every move. It's illegal to climb their highest mountains out of spiritual respect. The culture is based on insulation, but $1 trillion international city requires radical openness. The inherent contradiction is staggering. The new inhabitants will change the country's values. And yeah, there are a ton of challenges. And yet Bhutan is creating Gelephu because it needs to modernize and enter the modern world to survive. It needs to attract talent and foreign investment. And they're trying to do it by proposing a totally different model for what a city and even capitalism looks like. And okay, so what if the historical baggage is heavy? The demographic challenges are immense. The economic premise seems impossible. But compare Bhutan's vision to the cynical dystopian projects we see elsewhere, like Saudi Arabia's The Line, which feels like it's born of ego and oil money, or the new billionaire-only city outside of San Francisco. Bhutan is trying something else. They are betting that urban development doesn't have to mean soul-crushing stress and alienation. Can they navigate the minefield of their own history and completely reinvent themselves? Well, I don't know. But in a world facing climate change and factionalization and a crisis of meaning, we need new and bold ideas. And I think it's amazing that the country is trying something so visionary, because rampant, uncontrolled capitalism isn't going to be what gets us out of the mess that rampant and uncontrolled capitalism created in the first place. While Bhutan still has one foot in its medieval past, just perhaps our own medieval past is where we took those first wrong turns in the first place. In other words, maybe, just maybe, we, the citizens of the world, need Bhutan to pull this off. And you can actually get involved in this new Gelephu project right now. They're building it right now, and the king is asking for people to come in and invest and move there and try to create this vision. The invitation is out there. You can go Google up on exactly how to do it. And if you are a fan of visionary and independent and brand new thinking, I would also like to suggest that you could support this channel, the independent journalism that I do outside of the mainstream media, and sign up for my Substack newsletter, which is free but has a paid version which keeps me alive and on the air. And I appreciate every one of the people who already support what I do. They roll in the honor roll, which you're going to see in a few seconds. I know, go check it out. It means the world to me that you're here. From Fox Swiss Inc. in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates. Thank you so much to my supporters here on Patreon and on Substack and even on YouTube who make this work possible. It means the world to me that you're here. And if you want to get your name on the honor roll, all you need to do is sign up at the links down below. From Foxtopus Inc. in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates.